Let's go right to the very latest on the flooding situation along the St. John River. The mayor is going to join us in just a moment, but we want to tell you, first of all, New Brunswick's Emergency Measures Organization urging people who live near the river, south of Fredericton and in the St. John area to leave their homes. For some, that may mean waiting out.
Biggest concern is not having the boats making these 5- and 6-year-old children come across this water.
You're looking at video from the Darlings Island area. We focused on that in our coverage yesterday. It's about 30 kilometers to the northeast of St. John. St. John preparing for the worst flooding in 10 years with potentially record-setting high water levels along the river to the north of the city. The mayor of St. John is already up and in his office this morning. That's Mayor Don Darling, who's with me. And Mayor Darling, thank you for giving me some time on what I think is going to be a very busy day for you. Good morning.
My pleasure, Heather. Thank you.
Can we begin with some of the numbers, just for everybody to understand? 4.2 meters qualifies as flood stage. The last numbers we had from St. John last night, the river was at 4.7 meters, so a half a meter above flood stage. Where are we starting today?
Yeah, so we're still on the rise, Heather. Just the head of our EMO, Chief Kevin Clifford, just finished an interview with local CBC, and really just saying to folks, we're in voluntary evacuation now. It affects about 1,900 people, and the chief was really pleading with folks to self-evaluate at this stage. But look, I would say folks that have that are experiencing floodwaters now have likely experienced those before, and we're really asking them to err on the side of caution, and we will only be moving people out, as the chief said, through the daylight hours, only because there's so many obstructions beneath the water that we can't see. And we're asking people really to err on the side of caution, and if they can get out here today, the waters are going to rise. The chief is using estimates, of course, that the water will go well above 6 meters, which will put it back into 1973 levels.
Well, that would be even higher than 1973 by half a meter, and 73 the highest water levels that you have recorded. I'll come back to the evacuation in just a second, but keeping with this, if you do indeed hit what would be historic water levels, what will that do to your city?
Yeah, look, right now what we're focused on is we've been preparing for days. Our EMO is in a full operation now. The chief, our first responders, and a number of other city staff have been getting ready. Hopefully no one in St. John is surprised that the floodwaters are coming. We've been watching our sister community in Fredericton up the river experiencing flooding over the last week. From a community perspective, Heather, we're a resilient community. I was out and touring last night myself, and there were hundreds of St. Johners out sandbagging and helping people prepare for even higher floodwaters. In terms of what it will do, certainly I saw last night already buildings that are experiencing very, very high levels of water. We've seen some buildings that are already experiencing flood damage. So if that water rises, another meter, another 3 to 5 feet, I mean, we're certainly going to experience some damage. But what's most important is that we make sure that everyone is safe, that citizens are safe, and we'll deal with the aftermath afterwards.
As it comes. 1,900 people, as you mentioned, affected by what was issued last night, this voluntary evacuation. Are they moving out as suggested? How is that going so far?
Yeah, so I'll have a briefing, this morning here from our staff. I myself heard the head of EMO, Chief Clifford, interviewed just 20 minutes ago. He was still asking people to err on the side of caution. So I think what that means is that some people have moved out, but not likely a large number. And it's going to be two things. Either folks are directly being impacted with water infiltration into their buildings, or the access to their homes are cut off. And I think it's the access that's being cut off to a fairly large number of folks, Heather. So I don't have any specific numbers on how many people have moved out, but what I can tell you is we've been preparing. Our teams are together. We're moving emergency people into the areas most affected today around the city. Red Cross is on standby with centers, and it's very heartwarming to me. St. John citizens are reaching out and posting that they have couches and bedrooms and beds available to those impacted, and a hot meal available. So we're a resilient bunch here in St. John, and I've seen it over the last couple of days.
And they may well need it if the waters rise to the levels you're thinking. Do you foresee having to move to mandatory evacuations?
Yeah, look, that is a decision that the head of our EMO will make. If he believes and his team believe that's the decision that should be made, it'll be made. But, you know, I did meet again. I met a citizen last night that said, I've been through this a number of times and I'm not going anywhere. I would urge people who think like that, and I appreciate and understand this is our home and our belongings and so on. But you know, I just urge people to heed the warnings and know that it's very difficult to get people out in the middle of the night and so on and so forth, and can be quite dangerous for first responders and for citizens themselves. So if we have to move to a mandatory evacuation, that the chief will make that decision, and I support him 100%.
Mayor Darling, we'll be keeping in touch on this and watching very closely. Thank you for the time this morning, and best of luck at what lies ahead, it sounds.
My pleasure. We'll get through this, Heather. Thank you.
Thanks. Mayor Don Darling in St. John this morning.